Welcome back to the Humble Healer podcast. And thank you for joining me for this episode. And today we will continue with the education on different diet series. And this is not a fat diet, but it's one of the best diets out there for your health with a lot of backing from scientific research. And it's the Mediterranean diet. And so according to a recent review in the New England Journal of Medicine, which is one of the premier medical journals, the Mediterranean diet is a dietary pattern characterized by the predominance of plant foods such as fruits, vegetables, minimally processed cereals, nuts, and seeds with moderate amount of diet of dairy products, mostly fermented, such as cheese and yogurt, and low to moderate amount of fish and poultry, and also low amount of red meat with olive oil as the principal fat source and usually wine along with meals. So scientific interest in this dietary pattern began after World War II, and it was described by one of the experts of the time as a diet of the Cretan people as surprisingly good, consisting of olives, cereal, grains, fruit, vegetables, and herbs with limited quantities of goat meat, milk, game, fish, and bread had a predominant role at each meal, and olive oil accounted for a large proportion of energy intake. In a 7-country study led by Ansel Keys, it subsequently demonstrated that the rates of death from any cause and from coronary heart disease were lower in the cohorts where olive oil was the main dietary fat compared with the Northern European and US cohorts. Also, an umbrella review of meta-analysis cited in the New England Journal of Medicine review with data from more than 12.8 million participants found robust evidence for protective association between adherence to Mediterranean diet and the following health outcome: death from any cause, cardiovascular disease, coronary heart disease, myocardial infarction, which is heart attack, cancer, neurodegenerative disease such as multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, and diabetes. The Mediterranean diet has been the most extensively investigated dietary pattern, this representing a dietary modification of great interest across multiple health outcomes. So the key components of the Mediterranean diet include high intake of plant-based food, such as fruits and vegetables, whole grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds, and also extra virgin olive oil as the primary fat source, which is high in monosaturated to saturated fat ratio. So the monosaturated is better than the saturated fat. With a moderate consumption of fish, seafood, dairy, especially yogurt and cheese and eggs, and low consumption of red meat, especially processed meat and sweet. Low to moderate red wine, and with new research coming out, this has become increasingly controversial, with new research showing that any amount of alcohol may have harmful effects on our future neurocardiac outcome, especially the neural health, mental health, or brain health. So the total dietary fat typically range from 32% to more than 35% of total energy, with only 9 to 10% from saturated fat, which is a more unhealthy kind, and relatively high monosaturated and polyunsaturated fatty acid intake, which are the more healthy kind. One thing I learned about one way to tell the difference, or the one easy, simple way to tell the difference between saturated fat and these healthier monounsaturated or polyunsaturated fatty acid or fat is that the healthier fat tend to exist in liquid form at room temperature, whereas the unhealthy fat like butter will be in the solid form. So if you were wondering, how to tell the difference, then that's one simple way to tell. Now, avocado is a healthy fat, but again, it's in a fruit form. So that's the exception. Dietary fiber intake is about 27 to 37 grams per day, roughly double the current US average. So some evidence on the cardiovascular benefits, including the landmark PREDIMED trial with randomized high-risk individual to Mediterranean diet supplemented with extra virgin olive oil, and the Mediterranean diet supplemented with nut or control reduced fat diet. So the control group is a group that will be compared to the Mediterranean two groups as mentioned. After a median of 4.8 years, the hazard ratio for major cardiovascular event was 0.69 for the olive oil group and 0.72 for the nut groups compared with the control. So 0.69 mean that it's 30% reduction risk in cardiovascular adverse outcomes for the olive oil group, and 0.72 mean 28% reduction in cardiovascular adverse outcome. So that's pretty good. Also, additional large randomized control trial, what is the gold standard for scientific research in the Lion Diet Heart Study, have further supported these cardiovascular protection results from this study. So there are benefits beyond the cardiovascular disease. The Mediterranean diet has been associated with reduced risk of metabolic syndrome, type 2 diabetes, obesity, cognitive decline, and neurodegenerative disease, including Alzheimer's, and I mentioned earlier, Parkinson, multiple sclerosis, and also reduced risk of depression and overall cancer mortality, including breast and colorectal cancer. The proposed mechanism include favorable modulation of lipid profiles, enhanced insulin sensitivity, reduction of inflammatory and oxidative stress markers, improved endothelial function, and antithrombotic activities, largely attributed to bioactive compounds such as polyphenols, monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fatty acids, and dietary fiber. So bottom line, if you can get diet that are rich in these compounds, then you can promote a lot of these benefits for yourself. And you can see that in terms of what they say, you are what you eat. In this particular case, what you eat can make a huge difference in your health outcomes due to multiple mechanisms. So let me break down a little bit here. So lipid profile, as we know that cholesterol level can have significant impact on your cardiovascular health and stroke, heart attack, and so on. And then insulin sensitivity or insulin resistance, also very important. Resistance or enhanced insulin sensitivity that can lead to much better health outcomes. And then inflammatory and oxidative stress markers. These are well-known risks for a whole host of health outcomes. That's why you have these compounds called antioxidants to try to reduce this. Anyone with overall elevated inflammatory state will have elevated cardiovascular risk and many other health adverse outcome. And then endothelial function plays a significant role in also cardiovascular outcome, since if you have endothelial dysfunction, it can lead to more inflammatory plaque and cardiovascular disease, stroke, and so on. And antithrombotic activity is similar to aspirin without the risk of bleeding, and improve also the reduced risk of heart attack and stroke. So many mechanisms can be derived from this Mediterranean diet, and you can see why it has so many benefits to our health. So due to these research trials, it leads to guideline by American Cancer Society and American Heart Association on primary prevention of cardiovascular disease. They recommended plant-based and Mediterranean diet along with fruit, nuts, and vegetables, legumes, and lean vegetable, animal protein, preferably fish. The AHA and ACC scientific statement notes that while evidence for effects on individual risk factor LDL was rated as low, appreciable outcome data demonstrated cardiovascular reduction. And also Obesity Society consider Mediterranean diet the healthiest dietary pattern available for reducing overweight and obesity prevalence. UNESCO recognized Mediterranean diet as the intangible cultural heritage of humanity in 2000. So there's some limitations because there's no single standardized definition of Mediterranean diet, and there's also cross-cultural variability, limited precise association. So implementing this dietary pattern outside the Mediterranean region present challenges related to food availability and cultural adaptation. The role of alcohol, even moderate red wine, within the diet is becoming increasingly controversial, with ongoing randomized control trial designed to address this question. A US-based Mediterranean diet adapts traditional principles to accessible American supermarkets. A common day might feature a breakfast of oatmeal topped with walnuts and berries, and a lunch of whole wheat veggie wrap with hummus, and a dinner baked Atlantic salmon with quinoa and roasted asparagus. I can live with that. I was raised on the Vietnamese diet, but that sounds pretty good and healthy to me. Well, I'll bet my wife will raise her eyes when she hears that. This eating pattern use American friendly staple and follow this guideline. Healthy fat based meals around extra virgin olive oil and added healthy fat from avocados, walnuts, and almonds. Plant-based proteins prioritize legumes like chickpeas, black beans, and lentils, and whole grains swap refined carbs for whole wheat bread, brown rice, farro, and quinoa, and lean protein and dairy. Costs consume fish like salmon and canned tuna twice a week, along with moderate amount of plain Greek yogurt and limited poultry. Produce. Load up on easily accessible American produce like bell peppers, spinach, apples, and berries. There's also detailed food lists and adaptable recipes available through the Cleveland Clinic Mediterranean Diet Guide and also the Always Mediterranean Diet Pyramids. So the Mediterranean diet has many benefits as we mentioned above. So let's go over some of the Mediterranean diet food lists and serving size. Just as some example. There are many ways you can do this, and you can go to the Cleveland Clinic Mediterranean Dietary Guide. But for example, fresh fruit and vegetable, 3 servings a day, veggie at least 3 servings per day, fruits half cup to 1 cup, veggie half cup, thing like that. So fish, nut, poultry, dairy, eggs. I don't want to. You can go over that guidelines. They have specific number of serving that you can create. But here are some example of how to come up with your own plan for breakfast. Get your day going with breakfast like a steel cut oat with fresh berries and ground flaxseed, and a whole grain toast with nut butter and nutritious smoothie. Greek yogurt topped with fruit and walnuts, and egg white omelet with fresh seasonal veggies. For lunch, a midday nutrition and a powerful energy boost, consider a bulgur salad with like lemon and herb tabbouleh or sharp broccoli tabbouleh, a whole grain pasta salad with plenty of fresh veggies, roasted portobello sandwich, and a cup of healthy veggie soup, toasted quinoa, and salmon salad. So either any of those is fine. And you may want to prepare some lunch the day before so they're ready to pack or wrap on the fridge as needed. For dinner, wrap up the day with a hearty, nutrient-packed entry like salmon with mango salsa, cod with lentils, lean roasted chicken over cannellini beans, savory chickpea, and spinach. Pancakes for dinner, quote unquote. So black bean burger or whole grain bun served with roasted beets. I'm sorry, roasted beet, not beef, roasted beets and a heart healthy pizza. For some added nutrients and color, throw together a side salad like a sesame cucumber salad or a fennel orange and mint salad. To keep things simple, try drizzling in mixed green with a nutritious Mediterranean dressing. Snack portion and prepare snack ahead of time so they're ready when you need them. Here's some ideas of what to keep at the ready. A handful of nuts and seeds, low salt or no salt added. Fresh fruit, ideally local and in season. Non-fat Greek yogurt, and a small piece of dark chocolate, at least 70% cacao. Whole grain crackers with hummus, and raw veggies with non-fat Greek yogurt dip. So what food are not allowed or shouldn't are very discouraged on Mediterranean diet? It doesn't set hard and fast rule for what you allow or not allow. However, it encourages you to eat more of certain food and limit other. Here's what you should try to limit as much as possible. Any foods with added sugar like bakery goods, ice cream, even some granola bars. Any drinks with added sugar, including fruit juices and sodas, beer and liquor. Food high in sodium or saturated fat. Refined carbohydrates like white bread and white rice. Highly processed food like some cheese and fatty or processed meat. So hopefully you find this helpful as a starter as you plan for a healthier lifestyle. And the key is to make sure that you come up with something that's sustainable and that you have the time and energy and the finance to support for the long duration. Make it practical and also take advantage of the fresh farm markets, and also there's if you are in the Worcester area, there's a Fresh Connect community link that you can get free fresh fruit and vegetables if you meet certain income criteria. So healthy lifestyle and healthy diet takes time and energy, but it can save your life. It can give you that longevity with also good health outcome and allow you to stay more active and allow you to be anything that can bring good health and longevity with a healthy lifestyle can also bring happiness and resilience too. So they almost always go together. So let me know in your comment what you've done for your diet and what do you find not practical, and share with us if you can. Thank you for checking in, and I hope you have a good Sunday. Take care.